much volume has just dropped off in the last few weeks?
Yeah, about a third of the import volume, which means give or take about 50,000 20-foot equivalent units gone off the arrivals coming in next week.
So how much is this really coming from all over? It's not just about China. This is about really global trade coming to a standstill until there is a much greater degree of certainty and a much lower tariff rate than even the baseline that's been put out there.
The Flexport CEO joined us earlier in the week, and he said ocean freight is down 60% from China. When do we see 100%?
Good question.
Across the United States, ports once humming with Chinese cargo are now turning into ghost towns. North of the border, Canada's ports remain active, but for how long? As China pulls back and a global realignment unfolds, the ripple effects could hit key sectors like agriculture and manufacturing, impacting businesses and consumers alike. Is Canada next in line for disruption? Stay with us, because this story goes beyond empty containers. It's a shift that could reshape global trade and redefine the way goods move across borders. The stakes are high, and the consequences could be closer than you think.
Welcome to Canada Connect, where the ripple effects of global power moves, policy shifts, and corporate decisions meet real lives on the ground. I am honored to represent the team here. Researchers, editors, storytellers, all focused on a single goal, making sense of how the headlines you hear around the world connect directly back to life in Canada. If you've been watching, thank you. Your support helps us bring these stories to light. And if you're just discovering us, welcome. You've just found a community that doesn't settle for the surface. So if these are the stories you care about, ones that link global decisions to everyday Canadian impact, subscribe now and join the growing number of people who want more than headlines.
Story out was anecdotal reporting as well. We've heard about China quietly starting to exempt about a quarter of U.S. imports. Are any U.S. importers exempting Chinese tariffs? Is there a way to get around the 145%?
Not really. There may be some exceptions, Anne-Marie, maybe a little bit going north or south of us, but realistically speaking, nobody is out there talking a lot about, hey, I got a better deal coming out of China right now.
The squeeze on Canada. Canada's economy is caught between two superpowers locked in a trade battle. The United States and China account for over 60% of Canada's trade, $1.5 trillion annually. But the Port of Los Angeles saw Asian imports drop 35% last quarter, signaling a seismic shift. Canadian ports are already feeling the ripple effects.
It's going to slow, economies will follow, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Back in November, so many of us were wringing our hands about 4% inflation. We've just added 10 percentage points to imports coming out of Southeast Asia for our port, and these unbelievable numbers out of China.
Vancouver reported 23% fewer container ships in March, while Prince Rupert canceled two major expansion projects. When US-bound Chinese goods dry up, Canadian transit corridors lose billions. $14 billion in US-bound cargo vanished last year alone. Smaller ports like Halifax are struggling too, with intermodal traffic down 18% in 6 months. This isn't just about fewer ships, it's about unraveling supply chains, fewer trucks on highways, fewer warehouse jobs, and less demand for logistics services.
How much are you going to see a real decline in dock workers if this goes on?
Yeah, this is the question. So the trucker hauling 4 or 5 containers today, next week, she probably hauls 2 or 3. The dock workers are no longer going to see overtime and double shifts. They're going to probably work less than a traditional work week, starting right off the bat. Every 4 containers mean a job. So when we start dialing this back, it's less job opportunity.
Businesses can't pivot quickly either. Vetting new suppliers in Vietnam or India takes 18 to 36 months, and most companies lack the cash reserves to wait. The auto sector shows how this plays out. A Windsor parts supplier saw Chinese aluminum costs jump 127% due to tariffs, forcing them to either absorb the cost or lose contracts.
We're anticipating this rolls and ripples through the economy from here, how it hits trucking, when this turns up on the shelf. What's the distance, the time from when you see a drop-off in volume and when we, as consumers, see the shortages?
Right, so CEOs are telling me, hit the pause button, right? I'm not going to import anymore at these kind of prices. Let's wait and see. I don't know if it's going to be 2 hours, 2 days, or 2 weeks till I get some clarity. Then hiring. Off the table for right now. Capital investment, pause. And the retailers are telling me that realistically, with even the 10%, I'm going to have to pass it on to the consumers.
In Sarnia, a chemical plant laid off 40 workers after Chinese materials were delayed in customs for months. StatsCan reports 1 in 5 manufacturers are stockpiling inventory because they no longer trust supply chains. Canada's trade deficit with China hit $51 billion last year, while U.S. protectionism grows. Border delays are worsening, with Chinese shipments taking 3 times longer to clear than EU goods. The Bank of Canada predicts 4 to 6% price hikes on electronics and furniture sooner than later. Politically, Canada faces impossible choices. When Ottawa banned Huawei from 5G, China retaliated by blocking $2.6 billion in canola exports. The message is clear: pick a side and pay the price. Businesses on the brink. Big box stores like Walmart can weather supply chain shocks with legal teams and warehouses full of inventory. But for the family-owned hardware store down the street, operating on razor-thin margins, it's a different story. Imagine the stress of Raj Singh, a Vancouver furniture store owner, who watched his 40-year-old business close after tariffs doubled his supplier costs overnight. Raj Singh: I called 14 other suppliers across Asia. None could meet Canadian standards or His story echoes across Canada, where small retailers face impossible choices, pass costs to customers, take on debt, or shut down. In another corner of Canada, Toronto's fashion district is reeling. Designers who once relied on Chinese textile mills now pay 43% more for Vietnamese fabrics if they can even secure orders. These aren't isolated struggles. Winnipeg machine shops pay 39% more for steel components, while Calgary auto shops wait 14 weeks for tools once readily available. The ripple effects are devastating. StatsCan reports 38% of small importers dipped into personal savings last quarter, while 12% turned to high-interest loans. Bankruptcy filings among small wholesalers rose 28% year over year. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce warns 1 in 8 small retailers could vanish by 2026. Minimum orders quadrupled. I either risk $80,000 on inventory I might not sell or redesign my entire collection. This is a David versus Goliath battle, with local businesses fighting to survive against global trade pressures. Their resilience is remarkable, but the odds are stacked against them. These aren't just numbers, they're livelihoods. Walk any main street and you'll see the toll space for lease signs replacing once thriving shops. Without bold action, the heart of Main Street Canada risks becoming a memory. Canada faces a defining moment in its trade strategy. Reliance on US and China trade carries growing risks, with $51 billion in deficits and fraying supply chains. Businesses are already paying the price through higher costs and lost contracts. Each delay in adapting trade policies costs Canadian families through job losses, rising prices, and weakened communities. Diversification to other markets can't happen overnight. But waiting out this trade war is no solution. Opportunities in innovation and new partnerships offer hope, but inaction is like a ticking time bomb for Main Street Canada. The choice is clear: adapt now or fall behind.